Aloha, everybody, and welcome to UFO Secret Space on the Aquarian Radio Network. And I'm your host, Janet Carelesson, with my co-host, Deborah DeFranco. And our guests today are Donnie Brooke and Laurie Velez. We have a lot of topics to cover. We started last week, went through Deborah. Let's do a sound check. Are you there, Deborah, my co-host?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
So what was so we left with a cliffhanger. Do you remember exactly?
Donnie was
was
telling the story, I believe, about, was it the light ships, Donnie? You were getting ready to tell that story? Yes.
Right. Well,
and so, yes, let him go with that.
All right. Well,
okay,
where all this
so
started,
Donnie, pick up.
Okay. Well, where all this started for me, I guess, was back in 1992 when I was going to Charlotte, North Carolina. I was going to do a show for Wahoo McDaniels. Now, if you watch wrestling, you know who that is. And if you don't know who that is, you need to know who that is. Anyway, Wahoo had brought me up there brought me up to the Mid-Atlantic, and I was doing some shows up there, and I was traveling to Charlotte. And I live in Augusta, Georgia. Technically Grovetown now, which is an area, which is a part of Augusta, kind of difficult to explain, but it's about a 3-hour trip driving one way. And I figured, well, if I leave about 10:30, I should be there by midnight, maybe 12:30 at the latest, Now, the 10:30 p.m., keep that in mind. I'm going to mention that again. Well, anyway, I'm driving to Charlotte, and it doesn't seem like I've been in the car that long, and then all of a sudden I see the city limits of Charlotte, and the sun's coming up. And I know that sounds weird, but what I had realized was I had an episode of missing time of about 6 or so hours, and I don't understand how because I didn't take any alternate route. So I got there, and I guess it would have been between 6 and 7 a.m. when I got there, and I got to one of the guys' house that was going to be working the show that night. And his first words were, "I thought you were coming in last night." I said, "I thought I was." And then I told him what happened. He was like, "That doesn't make sense." I said, "I know." So I didn't really think much of it. We just did everything we had to do that day and did the show, and I came home on Sunday, no big deal. And I didn't really think any more about that particular trip until after I had a very unique sighting of something that was when I saw it, and this would have been in 2011, when I saw what I thought was a star, but it was extremely bright. To me, it was brighter than what I guess I thought a star should have been. Got home one night at 10:30, ironically, from work that particular evening, and I took a picture of it. And I don't know why I did. I just did it, I guess, because I wanted to see what a star looked like on camera because it was a lot brighter. Anyway, I took a picture of it, came inside, got a shower, got a little something to eat. When I looked at the picture, it was not what my eyes saw. It was a rectangular-shaped fireball. Now, I know that's kind of confusing, but think about a fireball being orange and yellow color instead of a round ball, more rectangular. That's what was on the camera, and I'm like, well, that's kind of odd. And I didn't really think anything more to it, but in that particular picture, I did not notice it in 2011. I noticed it about 6 months ago, maybe 8 by now, and Laurie can remember the time frame of when I sent her the picture. I said, "Do you see an anomaly in this picture?" And she responded back, and I can't remember her exact words, but we both were on the same page of, yes,
so,
there's a head in here. Now,
yep. What's her relationship? What's Laurie's relationship to you? Let's just establish that foundation. How do you know Laurie? When did you meet her? What's her relationship? Yeah.
That's a story within itself. The honest to God story is this, that when I was on Facebook, I've had 3 accounts that have all disappeared. I wonder how that happened, but she was one of my friends on Facebook, and I had sent her, a friend request, and she accepted. We started talking back and forth, and then she saw the thing about me with the UFOs and brought up the conversation about her experiences and so on and so forth. And over a year, I guess it's been now, talking about that subject and just knowing each other from that respect. Never been in the same room together. I know that's hard to believe, but that's the God's honest truth. Never have.
Yep, that happens.
But when I showed her that picture, that orange whatever, I'm calling it a light ship because when I looked at it, it looked like a star. That's why I'm calling it that. And I'm putting ship on there because whatever this is seemed to have an alien gray in it. I know that's crazy to say it unless you have the picture and you're looking at it. But I'm like, okay, all right, I did not see this in 2011, but I'm seeing it now. All right. As soon as that happened, that next week, I started having premonitions. I would get an idea or a feeling, let me say it like that, a feeling that I'm about to get a phone call. Think about what it's like if you're doing whatever around the house and you hear the phone ring, how your body feels when your brain realizes the phone's ringing. Imagine having that feeling without it ringing. And then about 8 seconds later, it rings. That happened. And then feeling the same way, getting a text message. Now, on my phone, I keep it on mute. I don't have it on vibrate, so I don't know when I get some type of notification or message. I just have to check it. I had gotten that same feeling about a text message, and sure enough, Laurie had sent me a message about something. I can't remember what it was. But the message was probably 5 seconds old. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. Now, at work one night, about 6:30. Now, this particular occasion here was the second light ship visitation that I'm aware of. The first one was in 2011. I was at work, and I went outside to take out the trash, and there was still natural sunlight out, but you could tell the sun was going to be down shortly and the stars would be out. But yet I seen this light off in the distance, and it was relatively low, so needless to say, I took a picture of it. And sure enough, when you enlarged it, you could see an alien gray space as clear as you're looking at any kind of picture. Now, what's that beep?
Yeah, what's that beep?
Something beep.
Somebody in your car?
Oh, that was my car.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Just putting down the window.
Anyway,
okay.
So when I took the picture and I enlarged it and I saw the alien gray, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And right when I noticed that, I had texted them to Laurie to show them to her. She agreed with me. Is that right? The alien gray face.
Yeah, I noticed it automatically. And I said, you're absolutely right, Donnie. That's the second time that happened. Okay. The third time that this happened, that I had noticed the light ship, and I had noticed there was an occupant. I was here at home, and it was across the street over the Catholic church that's adjacent to my house. And it was still roughly about that same time where it's still natural sunlight out, but there's no stars out. The light is there. I take a picture of it. I enlarge it. Sure enough, in the picture, you can see the gray's head with the two black eyes. He looks like he's peeping over the trim. Like if you're peeping in a window, that's what it looks like. And as soon as I saw it, I said to Laurie, I said, do you see it? She goes, yeah, he's peeping at you. That was the third one. That was the three encounters that I am aware of that has happened to me. Okay, my theory is I'm having these because of the missing time, but I do not feel like I was taken. I think I'm being watched or something, and I don't know why. But those are what I refer to as light ship encounters and visitations. Because I don't have any memory of being taken, even though some people say you probably were, But I don't. I'm not going to sit here and say it happened and don't have a memory of it. I ain't going to lie to nobody. But that was weird. Let me
validate that for you somewhat. When I was in 1966, I was 12 years old, and I felt something staring at me, and I turned around, and there was one of those cigar-shaped craft, tree height, above my best friend's house, and I just left her house, and I was coming home. It wasn't there when I left, but by the time I got home, maybe it was there, but it blinked out. They can, I guess, blink in and blink out, right? So I turned around, and it's like, so it was tree height, and I could see there were little windows, and it was lined up with these little grays all staring at me. So I've seen them about tree height. They're not a tall tree, you know, an average-sized tree, and about 6 houses down in a Queens-type neighborhood in Pittsburgh in 1966. So, yeah, go ahead, continue your story. That's interesting.
And then another thing after that second sighting, and then I showed it to Laurie and about the Gray's Head, I also started finding that I could look at a picture of something, a widescreen shot of a picture, and if there's an anomaly in it, I can find it. I get a sense that it's there, and I enlarge that portion of the picture, and son of a gun, it's there. I've got a picture of the Skinwalker Ranch where there are 2 cigar-shaped UFOs over the Skinwalker Ranch. The last NASA launch that was in Kennedy, there's at least 3 or 4 different anomalies hanging around the launch pad before the launch that I've got evidence of, and there was an object while in flight. Now, I don't know why this is happening, but it's happening for a reason. I can just look at a picture of anything and say, all right, there's something about this picture that ain't right, and I will analyze it, and I will damn sure find something that is hidden within the picture that most people do not see. And it's usually something in the sky that's camouflaged against the clouds, but when you look at it and enlarge it, it's clear that that's really what it is. And there was a bogey watching the China lift yesterday. I got a picture of. If you look at the wide shot, and I'll send it to you so you can see it, upper right corner, it's a cigar-shaped black object. And how in the world are they launching with an unknown aerial something there, assuming they can see it? Because it's possible the camera caught it and they couldn't have seen it with their eye because maybe it was close, but the camera's able to catch it. I don't know, but it was there. So that's another thing, the premonitions and seeing things in pictures that are not readily visible to, I guess you would say, the average person, I guess. You know, most people look at the stuff and say, oh, no, it's just a smudge or it's just a rain cloud or it's just this. But when it's cylindrical and it's even, you know, like I'm not trying to be from like a hot dog or something like that. I mean, it's obvious it's not the black part of the rain cloud. But people, are, I think, are in denial of the fact they can't explain it either. But that's pretty much the whole thing about the light ship visitations. You know, I'm sure they're out there a lot. I mean, I don't see them showing up 3 times and not coming back. I mean, I guarantee you they've got to be there. And I see a lot of things in life differently, too, and I think they got something to do with it, possibly. But I can tell Laurie wants to talk. I can just tell.
Yeah, let's let Laurie talk. Laurie,
I love listening to you talk. Story. Oh, okay. Well, this all started when I was younger, probably about maybe 7, 8 years old. I always felt like I was kind of being watched by something. I felt like something maybe from the sky or around me. I never felt completely alone. And as I got older, I started having these dreams. I think they're premonition dreams, but actual abduction situations. One time I woke up on this beautiful white ship, and there was this little gray. I woke up, I was laying down, and I woke up and I saw him standing next to me. I wasn't even scared. And telepathically, he says, hello. And I'm like, hi. And he's like, you're welcome to walk around as you please. So I walked around the ship, and I even walked up to the front of the ship where I saw this other gray pilot, and I talked to him telepathically as well. And I'm like, can I check out your controls? And he's like, yes. And they were just very friendly and welcoming to me. Like, they made me feel like I was at home in some way. And I kept having these dreams like this, and then I would have other dreams that I would be in a field of people. I don't know where exactly, but it was like a field of people. Then I would look up at the sky, and then all of a sudden the ships would come down. There would be a silver round ship. There'd be other ships coming down, and I would just have this feeling like, okay, they're finally making their appearance, and they're becoming bolder. It's the time. I've had countless premonition dreams like this. So on November 4th, 2016, about 5:30 in the morning, I had the urge to just go outside. Like, something was just drawing me to walk outside. So I went out there, and I look up at the sky, and I see this. It looked like a star at first, but I knew it wasn't, and I kept just staring at it, and I'm like, wait, this is not a star. And then it was flashing at me like, hi. Like, it was almost like I'm making these Morse code type of how you would think the sound would be, like like that. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. So I started recording it. Then I took so I have footage of that, and then I took still photos of it. I zoomed in, and you could see the ship, and you can see it. I zoomed in even more. It was like a gray space. It almost looked like E.T. And I showed my father this. He was like astonished. Mm-hmm. And my father, he's a retired state park policeman. He even witnessed in the 1980s UFO ship where other police officers saw it too. It's in some kind of book of documents with UFO sightings. So he was really amazed. And after that, I started seeing orbs in my room. Weird things started happening. Like lights were flashing in my room randomly. Then I was starting to able to do telekinesis. I started just having the desire to want to do it. Like, I felt like it's just something I could do now all of a sudden. I'm an energy practitioner too, so I do energy work, energy healing, chakra balancing, all that stuff. So it just came very naturally to me.
When this started? What year was this when this started? Yeah, when you started.
When I actually saw the first light ship was in 2016. It was on November 4th, 2016 at about 5:30 in the morning. After that, I was seeing them every day. Until this day, I see them practically every day, and they do communicate with me telepathically. You know, they give me kind words, like if I'm going through something, everything's going to be okay. There's been Greys and Nordics. I'm assuming they're Nordics because they have long blonde hair, very tall, bright blue eyes, very white skin.
Right, yeah.
I've woken up speaking in different
languages. So tell me
about,
let's break this down. So,
okay.
What was going on when you saw a Nordic? Was that were they with the Greys or were they separate?
The Nordic came to me when I was half asleep and almost like in a twilight state, and I could see this Nordic's face, like zoom in on me, and he's speaking to me in some kind of different language, but I understood it, whatever this language was. Mm-hmm. My ex-boyfriend at the time, he was like, "Are you okay?" He was saying hi. He's like, everything is well with you. Keep up the good work with what you're doing. You're a light worker. You're a healer. Keep working on these things, and we're always with you. It was just a very nice message. And my ex-boyfriend at the time was like, hey, you're speaking some kind of weird language. And I'm like, oh. So I'm like, okay. So he kind of witnessed me speaking some different type of language that he never heard before, not sleep gibberish, but something like obviously another language. So ever since, I've been seeing them every day. I saw one yesterday. I take as many pictures as I can, but it happens so much. To me, there's no need to take that many photos. I just appreciate the visit when it happens, really.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's just, to me, they're just part of, like, my star family. That's what I call them, my star family.
Right.
Yeah. And ever since then, I work on my...
It seems like, some people have different reactions. They have fear. They come back and they have like I've been abducted, they did a probe, they took my baby, they gave me a baby. You know, they have all these these kind of things that aren't really that great, or it depends on the teller of the story. Some people are like, wow, I got to have a hybrid kid. Some people say, you know, I get to be part of this program, and some people are like, it's horrible, they raped me. So you seem to be part of their family. You're part of the group that say, well, this is my star family, and it's like a reunion. So that's very interesting. I think that's what's going on. There are some people that are connected to them. Maybe their soul has originated from that that community, that star community. So if I were to ask you, where did your soul originate from? Well, without thinking about it too hard, where do you imagine your soul comes from?
I believe the Pleiades. Another reason why I feel this too is because I just feel very connected with that, and the good ETs. Also, my friends have witnessed my pupils shifting, like to almost like splits. I have tons of photos. I remember sending them to Donnie back then, you know, and he was pretty like, whoa. And so I'm not aware when it actually happens, but it's been caught in various photos. And if you ever want me to send them to you one day, I can.
Oh,
I'd be happy to.
Yes.
So it's interesting. So these changes within me led me to continue to do research about things, and I felt like the universe or they were guiding me to look up certain things, like things about starseeds. I never heard anything about starseeds before. These things just started popping up, and I was like, wow, I can identify with these things. You know, what people would identify with as being a starseed. They're very specific things, too, and I'm like, wow, okay, maybe this is a message. Then I started seeing synchronistic numbers like 1111, 444, 222. I see them every day. Then I started looking up, what do they mean, right? So 1111, that means you're entering to a different gateway, and you're transitioning like to the fifth dimension. So, you know, you are going through these changes, and I think this is also why Donnie started to be able to see things more, like instantly in pictures. He's like, that's a light ship, or oh wow, like I remember sending him a picture of one of the crafts that I took a picture of. It was green, and there was actually, I could see a reptilian face and his fingers, and there was a smaller reptilian face beside it. When I first saw this, I was kind of creepy because, you know, so a lot of them are bad, you know, some of them are good, but a lot of them are bad. So it's possible to have been visited by the bad ones as well, because I've woken up with lots of marks on my body that were unexplainable, like little fingerprints, letter V's, things on my legs. Like, well, anyhow, what I'm getting to is the fact that I think that Donnie was going through his own awakening process, and once you're awakened, you're able to see with your third eye more clearly, and so that's another reason why I think he should.
So, what do you think was
himself.
happening when you? Let's slow this down a little bit more. So you're saying that you saw reptilians, and I too have engaged with reptilians, and my tendency was to judge it as negative. Well, when I was having encounters, there were no other stories about it. That was before David Icke, but there was just that knee-jerk reaction to, here's a bipedal being that's obviously sentient and conscious, but he doesn't look like us, and he looks so bizarre because he's got a face that's obviously like a reptile. So there was a fear response I had, and it wasn't until I did years of therapy that I came to realize that was me. He wasn't really evil or bad. That was me responding to him. And when I relaxed into the memory, because everything is now, right? We think it's past and future, but it's really, all of it's accessible to us, and we can pull it into the now. We forgave each other. He said, I'm so sorry that I frightened you. It was never my intention. And that I apologize. I'm so sorry that I responded like that. In fear, it might have made you feel bad that, you know, I was judging you as, you know, ugly or something. So we had a forgiveness. So with that in mind, and I don't want to lead the witness because you may have completely different experiences than I did, what was your relationship with the Reptilians?
I honestly didn't feel like I had a relationship with the Reptilians. I saw the Greys more, and like the Nordics and the Palladians. But the first time I saw that photo that I took and I zoomed into its face, I was a little creeped out, And then over time, I just wasn't afraid anymore, because I also know that I'm protected. I'm protected by a higher power, of course, which is God. I've got my angels, and I have my star family, too, that are looking out for me. I had this one experience where I was laying down in bed. I was about to take a nap, and then I see this little blue ET walk into my room, and then I felt sedated. Like, I just felt like kind of more like, I can't even lift up my arms. I'm just feeling sedated, but my eyes were open, and he was cute. He was a cute little guy. I wasn't scared of him, and I know who they are, and they're the Blues. Like, I was like, oh, this is one of the Blues. And he came over, and he, in some kind of glowy blue marking, he marked my right shoulder with some kind of emblem. I don't remember what the emblem looked like because I couldn't see what he wrote, but he did something, he or she, and then it sprinkled some blue glowy stuff on my head, and then I passed right out. But when I woke up, I remembered everything, and I was like, wow, okay. That was the first time that happened, where I was conscious and one actually walked in my room, and I just could remember its big, kind blue eyes and its blue skin, and its like round face, and it had like kind of a pointy chin, and its eyes, like I'll never forget, its eyes sparkled like it was light blue, but then it had like gold, like sparkly to it. It was very like magical to me. Like, wow. And then I was grateful for the experience. I'm grateful for every experience that I have. Excuse me. The other night I woke up at 1:30 in the morning. I saw about 10 light ships in the sky, no joke. I'm like, what? That's the most I've ever seen in one evening. And I'm thinking, why are there so many? I'm thinking, are they just getting bolder? Or are they just feeling that I'm ready? I think that they know when you're ready to see them. They know when you're at a level that's okay to make an appearance without you being nervous or like. But I looked to the left, and then another one started moving in. Then it paused right in my sight, like directly across from me. And I looked to my right. Another one moved in slowly, then paused. Of course, there were tons in the middle, spaced out. I'm like, these are definitely not stars. I definitely saw stars up there, but those weren't, because I just knew. So every time I'm outside or I just have this feeling to look outside the window, there they are. And I see now about 3 at a time on a regular basis. And they'll flash at me like,
they don't want to hurt you. And sometimes people who have experienced intense contact, they've actually died. Like there were the guards in Montauk, and they kept having heart attacks because it was so beyond their belief system. So they had to start, somehow they started preparing them. So I think you're right. You're saying somehow I was ready. And so that was the early years of contact with us. They were making mistakes, and people were dying, and they don't want to do any harm to us. So that is an indication that you're ready for more contact. And, then you'll, as you get, and Whitley Strieber outlines that in some of his books. I remember reading The Secret School, how you can prepare yourself for contact. Because if you're freaked out, they're not going to come near you. They just don't want you dropping over dead on them. So. Oh,
absolutely, yeah.
It's kind of like, did you ever hold a bird in your hand? Like when I was a kid, the little birds would fall out of the nest, and I was trying to rescue them and put them back in the nest, right? And you'd pick them up, and their little hearts are going 100 miles a minute.
Oh,
and it's like,
I know.
Sometimes they just don't make it. And it's like, and then I would sob. Anyway, I remember that. But same thing. They don't want to hurt anything. Their intention is, at least most of them, I don't know. It's the whole spectrum. It's just like humanity, right? You have some people.
Right.
But for the most part, humans, when they approach each other, they don't have murder in their heart. They have, who are you and wanting to get to know you. So, Okay, Deborah, do you have any questions? Questions for Laurie?
Sorry, I had to. So, Laurie, the memories that you have, that you've shared with us today, are these memories recalled memories or recovered memories?
Recalled meaning you can instantly remember them?
Yes. Or recovered like through hypnotherapy?
No, I've never had to go through hypnotherapy ever for it. I've just been always very welcoming and into metaphysics. I think that they always felt that I was like ready for it. You know, and as I got older, I was even more ready to see them and for them to communicate with me and show themselves to me.
And I think,
go ahead.
There's obviously an ultimate goal for all of this, right? For both the contact that both you and Donnie are experiencing and all the synchronicities. So what do you think that is? Just a judgment call. I mean, just, estimate. It's not like your hands are being tied to your opinion about this.
Right. So you're asking basically what's the purpose of this happening? Or what do you think I think is the purpose of this?
Yeah. What do you think the end goal of this contact is for the beings making contact?
I think basically it's to let me know that yes, there is life other than Earth, and there are good beings out there who are looking out for you and have good intentions, and they can act as guides in some way. And I think that they're here, or they make contact to help you awaken and to learn about yourself and maybe your purpose here on Earth.
And Donnie, what's your opinion? What do you think the end goal is of this contact?
Of course, I don't know ultimately, but I have always asked myself, what made me friend Laurie on Facebook, not knowing anything about her, but knowing about the things that I had been interested in since 2005, because her profile didn't give you any hints. And you know what I mean? So for some reason I did that, and I have thought that, okay, maybe I was guided. And I say maybe because I don't have anyone standing in front of me saying, oh, yeah, we did that, that kind of thing. But it makes sense to say that happened with everything else that's happened and kind of falling in line the way it has. I mean, it's kind of odd to explain sometimes because this is such a obscure, complex topic. It's always going to be an unanswered question, and then when you answer one, here comes another one, But evidently, they are trying to show us something, and evidently, they have put Laurie in my path to be someone to let me know you're not imagining this. Okay, you're not imagining this. Okay, you've got someone that's having the same similar scenarios. You're not just hearing about someone on a talk show claiming they were taken and they just want 15 minutes of fame. See, that's the thing with me. Everybody asks me, do I think I'm taken? I say no. I'm not trying to say that I'm not putting myself in that scenario. I don't care about being known for that because that's not true, or not true as far as I know. And that's the honest to goodness truth. Now, if something ever happens and I find out that I'm wrong and I was a 92, then I have no problem admitting it. Because trust me, I'm not afraid to tell somebody something that I know they're not going to agree with. I'll do it respectfully, and I'll do it. Jim Parsons, that was on Big Bang Theory, he was on the Tonight Show. It was the week of his 40th birthday, and I can't remember if Jay Leno was on there or was it the new guy. I can't say it's the guy from Saturday Night Live. Anyway, Jim Parsons said 40, he said, man, 40 is my effort age. I don't care, I just say it. That's kind of the way I am, but especially with this topic, I've seen so much, and I have learned so much down the rabbit hole that I'm like, okay, most of these people ain't going to understand this, and a lot of people I will not have this conversation with because it's going to turn into an argument because they're so tunnel visioned and ignorant. The human ignorance in them is overtaken.
I think what Dr. Lesson calls it is they're living under the God spell, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would go with that.
Right.
I would go with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, the whole thing is with me, but if you believe that God is the supreme being, and I do, you have to say to yourself, okay, our Bible says God created the world, the earth, in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rests. Now, the Bible don't tell us what he did on the eighth day, but if you look at the fact there's 9 planets you learn about in elementary school, evidently he's been doing something. So there's got to be other life to our existence.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it like that, but crap. I mean, what's God doing? Just sitting around with his feet propped up? No. I mean, these planets are out there for a reason, and what gets me is people do not want to admit there's life there because they are so freaking scared to admit they don't understand something. That's like when it – go ahead.
Don't you think it challenges their beliefs in that the God of the Bible isn't necessarily the God that's out there, right?
Well, this is my thing, especially being from the South. You got people, and I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary. It's called Out of the Shadows, and it talks about the things with Hollywood and Operation Mockingbird and all that. Anyway, when the documentary comes on, the guy that's on there, and he's like the narrator and the host, he says, how do you know the things that you know? And the answer is, once upon a time when you were younger, someone you trusted told you something was a certain way, you accepted it. And that starts in first grade or kindergarten and goes all the way up through adolescence, all the way to college, and then from there. We didn't learn in school that when Armstrong got to the moon, that President Eisenhower signed a deal with an extraterrestrial race. So when you tell somebody that, you're automatically nuts. People do not stop and say, well, hold on, why do you think this? Tell me why you think this. What have you read that leads you to believe this? People don't do that. Their brain don't work like that. That's the human ignorance factor. That's why the humans are, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but they are the special ed of the galaxy. Because when you try to explain something, nobody wants to slow down. Nobody
God, that's
wants,
hilarious.
Nobody wants to slow down their imagination to listen. Now, and now that I said that, I got to get on this COVID crap for just a second. All these people wearing these.
Wait.
I want to say
something before you say something. I want to say something. I may not believe what is about to be said. This is a disclaimer. We do not. Our guests do not always reflect the. We all have different opinions, okay, and we're all entitled to that. So go ahead, but just let you know, I probably have a different opinion than what you have. But go ahead.
Oh, no, this is going to be the psychology of people wearing these masks. When people go out in public, the power of suggestion dictates what they do. Now, somebody goes out in the public and they see a bunch of people wearing these surgical masks and whatnot, and they know about this alleged virus that they don't know that much about. I'm talking about the early stages of this mess. They see this. Logic tells them, their logic is, well, I better get a mask too. Now, they don't know. They haven't done their research on, should I wear it at home? Should I wear it in the car? How much should I wear this? They don't do that. They wear the mask because they see their neighbor doing it. That is what I'm talking about. They don't slow down and try to rationalize and say, okay, what kind should I get? How should I wear it? When should I wear it? How much is too much? Like someone that wants to learn something. That's what I mean about this COVID. I personally don't think it's as extreme as they say, but that's a totally other subject. But I'm talking about the psychology of not slowing down and asking questions and then making a decision. the person's imagination runs away with them, and then they end up stumbling over their own actions and words. That's like when people see the word UFO.
What we have people who have beliefs. Most people just have beliefs, and nobody can prove anything. I can't even prove I'm alive. I could be, dead and thinking I'm alive, because apparently dead people think they're alive, right? We don't know. We can only pick something, pick something to believe and believe it. And most people who are born in one belief system, the God spell, can't begin to wrap their heads around the other belief system. So if you're born Catholic, you probably cannot imagine believing what a Muslim believes, and what a Muslim can't imagine believing what a Jew believes, and so on and so forth. So we're already pre-prejudiced against the opposing religion, and we dive into the culture. Now, a certain percentage of those are going to rebel, and they're going to go polar opposite. Their parents might be fundamentalists, and they're going to go and they're going to be atheists, right? There's, about if you have 3 children, you're likely to have one that conforms completely, one that goes the opposite, and then one that kind of settles in the middle. And that's basic psychology 101. So, like here in Maui, which is Hawaii is a blue state. So you're going to have a different reaction to the mask, not mask debate, belief system, what are you going to do, than in Texas, right? And so, and I don't want to really go into that, because that's not what this show is about. We do a political show on Thursdays, so we can pull this topic into there. I want to stay focused on the ufology and what's going on there. But anyway, that's what my research shows about beliefs, and I have a psychological approach because my husband's he's a doctor. He teaches psychology on a PhD level, so that's my, I guess, bias because of my education.
You get me on the couch, he'll have his own TV show.
Well, that's what we've been doing, because we're very open-minded. Most psychologists, they hear a UFO story, they start, prescribing you pills, right? So because we're open-minded, we get more of the story than your average psychotherapist or psychiatrist who said, here, take a pill, you're delusional. So, but do we ever get the truth? Do we ever get what's going on? We never get what's going on if you don't listen to the narrative. So on our show, we're getting the story. We're listening to the narrative without, prejudging. So, okay.
I'm so screwed up I can make Dr. Phil's hair grow back.
I'm really grateful. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to say I'm grateful that you have a radio station in which people can come forth and share their stories. Because yes, you can't go around talking to everybody in like everyday life about this type of thing, because they might think you're nuts. So I think that you're led to certain people so that you don't feel so alone in it, meeting other experiencers, because I think we have a soul tribe that we're led to, an outlet, because it would be horrible to just keep that all to yourself, right, and not be able to share this without judgment. So I'm grateful that you do have, the station.
And I have a station because that's my story. Because I came in, there was no one to talk to. I'm older than you guys. I was born in 1954. And all this stuff was going on with me. I was a conscious contactee. I came in with memories. So, I'm not going to take a show with my story, but that's why I started this, because I kept finding other people. But it took a long time. It was well into the 80s and 90s before I started, because people had to get comfortable with the idea. We really owe a huge debt to Betty and Barney Hill, that they were brave enough to go get regressed and tell their story. So that kind of broke things open. And then that paved the way for Roswell to come forth, with Stanton Friedman investigating it. And so that's kind of some of the background. But, we're only getting the tip of the iceberg here, because people are still afraid, not because of, something will hurt them, but because of the shame shame factor. You know, they get called in the retarded or crazy or whatever. So, okay, somebody else.
Yeah.
Special ed.
For our listeners that remember this, in 1963, we know the Kennedy assassination. In 64, the Warren Commission said it was a lone nut scenario. Okay. That's what everybody was told, and that's what everybody pretty much knew until 1969 when Jim Garrison took Clay Shaw to court and charged him with a conspiracy charge in the Kennedy assassination. And Jim Garrison, previous to going to court, was on the Tonight Show and all the talk shows, and people make fun of him because he said the Warren Commission was wrong. He's saying something different than the official narrative. Now, this is related to the Kennedy assassination, nothing related to space or nothing like that. People poked fun at him because he was saying something different than the official word. But when he went to court and laid his evidence out, he won the case in the court of public opinion. And people were basically, well, here's mud in your eye, type of thing. So that should have taught people that when you have an official word, okay, it's the official word, but if you hear somebody say something that's different, slow down your imagination. Find out why they say these things. See, that's the key, is why does somebody think that this did not happen on this day and the news said it did? That way you can make heads or tails about the person that is trying to tell you differently. Because for all you know, that person just might be right. But nobody does that. They accept the official narrative because it's easier. And that is the human mind being the special ed of the galaxy. I hate to say it like that, but it is. If more people would slow down their imagination and listen and ask questions before they assume, they might see this world a whole lot different.
Right.
And if they do that,
if you were educated in, say, you've got the history of the world and you lived in Australia, you get a whole different history of the world than if you're raised in the United States. We have a very warped version of reality compared to other countries. Of course, if you're raised in Russia, you'll have a different story. So,
I mean, that's
so how do we deal with that though? I mean, because there's always perspective. You can have people witnessing a live event and then interview them later, and there's 20 witnesses, and they're all going to see something different, and they'll testify for something different, because that's just, how reality works and how human nature works. We all have our own filters.
I've often wondered why that happens, and I'm going to tell you, I've often thought that maybe the Mandela effect is associated with that. In other words, if you show somebody, I'm trying to think of an easy, for instance, show somebody a picture of the Kennedy Space Center launch pad, okay? Ask them what color the rocket is, okay? If you ask 10 people, you might have 5 that get it exactly right. You might, okay? Because if someone says it's red and black, and let's say if it was red and black, 5 people say that, and somebody says it's red and blue. Okay. That person that sees red and blue, I have often wondered, could their perception of the world based on their soul is naturally seeing every single thing different than the masses or the majority? And because the Mandela effect has been to where, well, yeah, when I was a kid, Fruit Loops was spelled this way, now it's this way. Has it always been this way, or did they change it? We just don't know it. Which one is it? So I've often wondered about that, because especially when it appears to be something blatant and obvious. That's just my take. But there again, the Mandela effect, I'm not sure I understand that in any respect other than the fact that certain things were allegedly a certain way in 1975, and we have them now, but they're different, and allegedly nothing's changed. You know, I mean, it's tough to say, but it's numerous things. Nelson Mandela, when did he die? I remember him allegedly dying in the 80s. Unless I got fake news. I hate to use those two words because your buddy uses them, but Operation Mockingbird, it could have been fake news. I mean, who knows?
So tell us more about Operation Mockingbird, because I'm not really familiar with that term. What was Operation Mockingbird?
All right, Mockingbird had two fronts. The first original front was the CIA wanted to manipulate the news media in the United States, number one, so that other countries could not totally know what's going on in this country. If you couldn't get into the country to spy, you could find out what the news reports were, and you would have an idea what was going on a nationwide level. So if you had real stories, but you inserted fictitious points to it, it changes the story. And that was one reason. Second reason was taking real intel, hiding it in plain sight, especially with the subject of UFOs and all of the other subjects related to it. The one way that you show these people out here, if you are the Pentagon, that all of this stuff is science fiction, is you put all of this stuff that's happening behind the scenes, you play it out on a silver screen in a theater somewhere or in a television show. Nobody's going to take it serious. And the biggest example is right in front of everybody's face, but they don't see it, and it irritates me. It really does. It's the Star Trek Space Force similarity. Gene Roddenberry based Star Trek on Project Solar Warden, and Project Solar Warden has partially been disclosed as the new U.S. Space Force. Now, they're not calling it Solar Warden. The whole idea behind that is still deeply classified. But if you ask the general public about the new Space Force, they're going to say, no, it's called the U.S. Space Force. It's not Solar Warden. They're not going to admit that because it was not told to them in official capacity. Now, Gene Roddenberry tried to get Star Trek on in the late 50s, and when the 1950s science fiction craze had hit, he had the idea for Star Trek. Nobody wanted it. And he had gotten the idea, if I'm not mistaken, from the movie Forbidden Planet. I think that's where he had said he had gotten the idea. Nobody wanted it. So finally, he's invited to the Pentagon for a meeting with military personnel. Now, first of all, why would they want a Hollywood guy to come to the Pentagon for a meeting? Okay, it's kind of obvious that they wanted to cut him a deal, and it's obvious to me, look here, we're going to give you this, put it in your show, it's going to get put on TV. Because when he went to the Pentagon, it was like, I think, within a month, maybe as early as 3 weeks, Lucille Ball called him up and said, Gene, we want to put your show on. What timing, huh?
Right.
So Gene Roddenberry based Star Trek on Solar Warden. The teleportation, Captain Kirk beaming down, all of that. After the Eisenhower Treaty, the Pentagon, the Joint Chiefs, the military, the government, whatever, gets all of this information. And in 1958, which on the last show is when I said it actually happened, DARPA was established, and so did stealth. Well, the study of stealth started. That is when we started getting information and own all this intel. Now, granted, 1966 is when Star Trek it debuted, so they probably filmed in late 64, 65 for the first season, so he had to go to the meeting in maybe late 64, I'm guessing here, because it was right before.
Well, they filmed The Cage, the two-part, which ended up being the two-parter, and they didn't. Let's see. I used to know all this because I started out in '66, and they went
Jeffrey Hunter played the captain.
Right, Jeffrey Hunter.
Had to reshoot it.
Well, part of what happened,
they had to
Jeffrey Hunter died, and it was a mysterious, almost like a murder. We're not sure exactly what happened, but they also had some objection to the number one character. They didn't like Majel Barrett being a strong woman, so they were dealing with the times, and so they didn't like. They had some objections to Spock. So anyway, so they reshot the pilot with the first one that made it on TV was that one with the creature with the with the fingers that would suck on the faces, right, and kill people. So they kind of made it a monster thing, but they still had an intelligent first officer, Spock. So that's what made it different than everything up until then. There were no
Spock was a hybrid.
But up until Star Trek, the only intelligent extraterrestrial was Michael Rennie in The Day the Earth Stood Still. And then he had a sidekick, Klaatu. So anyway, so that's kind of how that happened. But then that launched that perspective that we could really get to the stars. And I was a teenager at that time, and I was just so excited. Like our future, we were on a different trajectory. We were going to go to the stars, just like I was alive when Kennedy said we're going to get to the moon before the
Let me tell you why he said
60s,
that.
Right?
Let me tell you why he said that.
Why did Kennedy say that?
I'm fixing to tell you.
Yeah, why did he say that?
Kennedy.
I was just a kid watching the speech. So what's behind that?
All right.
Go ahead.
John Kennedy made that speech because John Kennedy knew we had the technology to go. How did he know? Because he was told about technology that we had been given. I don't believe that the Joint Chiefs told him where it came from. I really, really don't. But in 1961, John Kennedy started the National Reconnaissance Office. In other words, we had technology that could go to space as early as 62, Cuban Missile Crisis. Okay. John Kennedy gives his moon speech. We shall go to the moon because he knew we were going. He knew we had the technology. That's why he did it. Think about it. Compare his speech with Barack Obama talking about Mars. Anytime a president says we're going to do something like that, either we got the tech and we're fixing to do it or we've already done it. I believe we were on the moon before 69 because Neil Armstrong saw evidence of something that was just like Project Horizon. Now, Project Horizon was played out on television. Space 1999. A military outpost on the moon with a human alien staff. I mean, there was military non-terrestrial officers. What did Gary McKinnon find? Non-terrestrial officers on the moon working at a moon base. And in Space 1999, there was one character that was either an alien or a hybrid. It was a female character. So there is your reference to Project Horizon. Project Horizon was turned down by Dwight Eisenhower because he said we didn't have the technology. But then you turn right around, you call it something else, and then you execute it. That's how you keep things quiet. Now, when I tell somebody we're on the moon before 69, they think I'm nuts. But then I try to explain that to them, but they don't want to listen because they didn't learn that in school. I'm automatically wrong.
Right.
But that's how you hide it. John Kennedy knew we were going. He knew it. That's why he made the speech. And
then there's also
when Barack
the story
Obama,
that he was involved with the planet Serpo, or at least in the planning.
The project,
killed before the execution. But and of course, if he was in the loop, he knew about Roswell, and we had already reverse engineered a lot of that technology. And then if you read about Bill Tompkins selected by extraterrestrials, we had the Battle of Los Angeles, and they were working on this reverse engineered technology since World War II. So there's the public program, which is meant to just keep us in the dark, and then there's what's really going on with the secret programs. I have a friend that's in his 60s, and he was a clone after World War II. They started the cloning project. The Japanese were working with the Americans, and they were creating super soldiers. So we have all these stories that are coming out now. But if you want to believe, that the little story, that's your reality. Some people just are not comfortable in believing that anything more than what they're taught in their, Bible schools, right? So
yeah,
this
John
is for
Kennedy,
a little niche. That's right.
When he was elected, the alleged story was that people did not like John Kennedy because of his father, one, and number two, they felt like he stole the election. Now, I think the Joint Chiefs were trying to play ball with him up until the Bay of Pigs, and when he didn't provide air cover, which we had talked about on the last show, they saw that, and then they kept him out of the loop on a lot of things after that because he said that he was going to think for himself. So I think they did after that. Before the Bay of Pigs is when they did the NRO. They told him about that said technology. He establishes the NRO, and the NRO being the beginning of the secret space program. Now, that's the way I see it playing out based on everything I've been able to be shown and told by certain key people. It makes sense to me. Now, everybody thinks that the oil people assassinated JFK because of Bush, and that's a good thing to say if you don't want to talk about the truth, because nobody's going to believe John F. Kennedy was assassinated because he wanted UFO intel, because that stuff's not real. You know what I mean? That's the narrative is the narrative is it's not real. I mean, we know differently, but the narrative is it's not real. But John Kennedy allegedly saw something while on his boat, so he knows something's up with something. He wanted to find out what was going on. But with the thing with E. Howard Hunt and with what he said to Douglas Caddy, and we talked about that on the last show, and in case you missed it, folks, basically Douglas Caddy asked E. Howard Hunt, Watergate burglar, CIA operative, why John Kennedy was shot, and he told Douglas Caddy because he was going to give our most vital secret to the Russians, and that was the alien existence on this planet. Now, and that was it. Now, that goes along with the UFO information of him requesting information and being killed 10 days later. But like I said on the last show, and I'm not trying not to repeat anything here, but there's no way you're going to kill a president in 10 days. You're not going to have a ploy unless you were trying to do something previous. So I think after that, and then on the 22nd of November, it was basically one of those, well, he can't escape type thing. I hate to say it like that, but they didn't have to kill him. They could have given fake documents and information and just said, hey, this is what we got. I mean, that could have been done. But they chose, MJ-12 chose the worst of the two evils, lying or killing. They chose killing. So MJ-12 was a group that Truman organized in 1947 to manage the UFO intel, in case folks don't know. Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to go into a little different direction this show because we kind of covered that last show. So you were talking about Ron and Nancy had an abduction, an alien abduction.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. All right, well, the whole thing about that scenario was Ron and Nancy, and this was when Ronald Reagan, I believe, was campaigning for the governorship. I don't believe he had become governor yet. He's traveling down the Pacific Coast Highway there, and he would have been traveling north because to his left would have been the ocean. And he and Nancy, they see what I believe was said was like a neon green light. They pull over to watch it for a little bit, and then all of a sudden they watch it for what they said was about 10 to 15 minutes, and then they proceeded on to the party they were going to. They were going to a party there at a fellow actor's house that Lucille Ball and Desi were going to be at. They get to the party like 3 hours late, I think it was, or 4 hours late, and they realized that people were leaving, and they couldn't figure out what was going on, and went into the house, and Lucille says, "Where y'all been?" And then they realized they were missing something like 3 or 4 hours. And then they told Lucille Ball about what they saw, and then they realized by calling the highway patrol that it was not a joke. It really was like 11 or 12 at night or something. It only should have been no more than 8 o'clock. And they were missing 3 or 4 hours. And then from after that point there is when Mrs. Reagan got into astrology because of what happened.
I see.
And Ron Reagan
also had another encounter when he saw, I think it was either once or twice while on a plane, while campaigning for the governorship. One of the experiences, he told the pilot to follow it. So these things, I believe, were watching Ronald Reagan. I don't know why I think that, but they were watching him, and I think they were guiding him because he became the president.
I believe that too, because you showed me a picture recently, Donnie, and you circled the light ship, possible light ship. I think it was daylight behind Ronald Reagan. I was like, wow, nothing passes your eyes, Donnie.
No, you're talking about the one on Life magazine?
The one that you sent me recently.
Okay, that was Eisenhower.
Eisenhower, okay.
Life magazine, it was President Eisenhower. It looked like he was out on a tarmac at an airport, maybe not there, but in the background, over his head, way far off in the distance, is a black dot. And it's oddly shaped, kind of like, I don't know, maybe oval, maybe. I still got it. Yeah, that was Eisenhower. And I saw that picture. I'm like, oh, yeah, the treaty, either before or right after. Probably right before, I would imagine. But, I mean, I honestly don't know. But it's obviously there in the picture. And this is something that evidently when Life magazine put this out, they didn't see it. But I did as soon as I looked at it. My eyes zoomed in on that instead of the people that were around the president. Because I looked at it and I looked down, I said, damn, that's Eisenhower. Okay. So I circled it.
Yeah. Deborah, do you have any comments or questions or directions you want to take this conversation?
Donnie, in all of your research, what is it that validated your belief in this the most for you? That this is real?
Probably a combination of several things. Of course, when I took the photograph at work and then when I enlarged it, and you could obviously clearly see the Gray's face. There's no mistaking it. I really believe on that particular day, they basically said, dadgummit, we're going to show him. I mean, they wanted to make it super easy. And I think maybe that's the most defining moment. But previous to that, with the situation of the light ship visitation in 2011, with about 8 months before the second visitation, when I saw the head, that kind of did it there. But if Laurie would have been in the room when I looked at the picture of that second, words cannot explain the look I had on my face and some of the words I said. Because it was so
hard,
obvious. Right? Yeah, I mean, that's the only way to really describe. I'm like, okay, what do they want? And then I showed the pictures to my coworker that was intrigued by the subject and had their misunderstandings about things, not disbelief, but misunderstandings. And he looked at it and he said, yeah, it's a face. Even he saw it was a face. He didn't say gray.
So,
I did because it was,
do you think there's anything to be afraid of?
Hopefully, well, I put you on this. There's good and bad in everything. There is bad in everything. And hopefully with this, hopefully the good is trying to reach me and not the bad. Because I have learned that people, and don't take this personally, y'all, people, human beings are two-faced as hell. I have learned a lot about people, and that's one of my awakenings I've had. And that's why I have withdrawn from certain people that I used to call friends. Because people are two-faced, and I have a wall built up around me. And every time I say that, people think it's a Donald Trump joke, and it's really not. I really got a wall built up because I'm sick of people's BS, and I'm sick of their ignorance causing me problems. And I think since I have shut a lot of that out of my life, I'm seeing a lot more of this other. And I think it's them doing it. That's what I think. But that's a good thing. Now, that's a real good thing because your ascension level can rise in that respect. If you have a lot of distractions, it's not going to happen. But there again, if you shut people out of your life and then you start talking about these things that to them are going to be weird, you're going to be considered a nut. And guess what? You're in the nut club, so that's the way it is. I'm okay with it. When something is the truth, I don't give a flip if people believe it because I know I'm not lying. If I was lying, I'd get offended. Like, why don't you believe me? I'm not going to. You can take the jackass to the creek, but you can't make him take a drink. That's the way I look at it. I'll show that picture to somebody. I'll tell them what I think it means. If they want to think I'm nuts, that's fine. If they're a real friend,
Donnie,
they'll say, okay. Yeah.
I want to go back to, we don't care if anybody thinks we're nuts, so why would we be on the show? We can't go through life worrying about what other people think. Yeah, who cares? Right. They're just not, whatever. I'm just not conscious. But I want to get back to Regan because I had another whistleblower say that, he was briefed apparently at Camp David about the project, what do you call it, the Roswell crash. And there was a guy that was called, I had the transcript at one point.
Hold on, don't tell me. I know what it is. Gatekeeper. Hold on, let me talk it out.
Okay.
God, what's the word they use for people that take care of a graveyard? It's the same word. Not gatekeeper. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna sound crazy on the radio.
Okay.
Caretaker.
Caretaker. That's it. The
Undertaker.
Caretaker.
Undertaker. No. Not an undertaker.
Caretaker.
That's the Undertaker is the one that processes the bodies. Caretaker is the one that manages the graveyard.
They called him the caretaker.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to tell you who I think that is. I think it's Valiant Thor. But I have no way to prove that. That's just my gut feeling when I heard about Regan and the word caretaker. I think it's Valiant Thor. I may be wrong. But
Valiant Thor had he left. This was Reagan became
allegedly.
president. We got to look this up. Allegedly, because what does leave mean, right? The same with the Anunnaki. They left. No, they're still around. So anyway, this transcript was saying that there was a guy that was there helping Regan go through all this stuff. And apparently that was the whistleblower's wife, and the whistleblower had died. And so the whistleblower's wife was telling us the story of how he was briefed. And so there's a transcript of that Linda Moulton Howe put out there, and so I better pull that up. What do you know about Reagan's briefing? Because he kept saying, imagine we were invaded by people from another planet.
That's why he did
and wouldn't that unite us? But if he's aware of Roswell and the secret space, some of these things are incongruent. Right? You're aware of this, so why are you making it a scary thing? Or what was that about? Ronnie and I share the same birthday, February 6th, so I have an affinity for Ronnie, and I voted for Ronnie, but then it's like I'm pissed off at Ronnie because why didn't you get this out? But then maybe that's why they Alzheimer'd him. They gave him Alzheimer because he had been warned. That's why he got shot, because you're opening your big mouth, right? So they warned him, and then he said it again, and then he all of a sudden had Alzheimer's, and he spent the last 10 years of his life, just being taken care of by his wife.
Jimmy Carter. Let me touch on this. Jimmy Carter, when he was elected, the first week of his presidency, I think it was the first day, but the first week he had a meeting with the CIA director who was at that time, which was was it Bush? No. Anyway, my brain ain't working too much. But anyway, he had the meeting in the Oval Office with the CIA director or deputy director. And whatever that was said to Jimmy Carter, because it is said that he asked about UFOs, whatever was said when the director left the Oval Office, the door was open. There was a young lady standing at the door that was talking to another lady. She looked to her left, she looked in there, and she said that she saw Jimmy Carter crying and his hands were shaking. Whatever was told to him scared the crap out of him. I do believe he was basically told, look, stay away from it. What happened to Jack and Ronnie will not happen to you. Well, Ronnie won the presidency, but at least Jack. And everybody knew, of course, the Kennedy assassination. So he didn't mention anything more about it. He talked about it when he was campaigning, but then he hushed up, and everything was fine. And you do notice the fact that he hushed, he had gotten a brain tumor, and then boom, he's still alive.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Has anybody thought about that?
They can take out presidents. Yeah. Well, there's always something over them, so they won't.
It's never
going
to come out.
There's something over them, so they won't turn each other in. So that's why, like at Bohemian Grove, they sacrifice babies. They kill a woman in front of everybody, and then you're part of this murder, and they do ritual stuff. So that's what's been leading out to us. So that's kind of
the whole idea when James Forrestal wanted to come forward and tell the world about what was going on, he accidentally fell out of a building, 10-story building.
Yeah.
This is not
going to
ever come
accidentally.
out. Yeah. This is never going to come out official, because if so, like I had previously said, that means the government's going to have to admit they've lied for 70 years. Okay? They're not going to do that. But I have often thought, what would happen, and just say, for instance here, a lot of these things is happening in society during the Trump administration. Okay, this whole coronavirus thing, I believe, was instigated by the deep state. Okay, I believe certain people don't want Trump in office, and they're trying to make his presidency a nightmare. Now, I'm not promoting him or knocking him. I'm saying that's what I think is going on. I would not be surprised to find out that somebody is going to make an official announcement about this to turn into a much more of a rioting and looting scenario. They're already rioting over the police doing things that they shouldn't have done. What are people going to do when they find out that the government has lied for 70 years? They're going to lose all control.
Well, that's the whole reason why we're probably never going to get closure, because too many people, and this is all sides. This isn't a red-blue thing. There are guilty people on all sides. I think that's the fake polarity that really protects the powers that be, whoever they are, the Greys, Reptilians. I don't think it's human. I think it's extraterrestrial that's really in control of the Earth. And so they have this polarity game, divide and conquer. We never figured out. We're always fighting against each other because we're a different race, color, creed, political country. And so if we really get out from under that and stop fighting each other, we would figure this out. But they're never going to let us figure it out. And then they've got people in there. It's like the mafia, right? You're not going to turn on us because you're going to go to jail, or we're going to kill you because you participated. I think I heard right before COVID broke, I heard stories, and it was really dark, and it said that they have a restaurant in L.A. where you go and you eat people. You eat dead people. It's like you got to go. If you want to end up getting rich, you got to pay your dues. And I've heard of that. I've done therapy with people, and they said, well, I wanted to get a Hollywood contract, or I wanted to get fame and fortune, and I had to sign away my soul. I had a client once. I had to sign away my soul. I go, what do you mean your soul? How do you sign your soul? And they said, no, you agreed to do this beyond this lifetime. So we've got to look beyond this lifetime and look at the big picture, which is beyond any one president, that this is a system that's existed for thousands of years to maintain control over humanity. And what I found in the secret space program is this child sex trafficking isn't just on the earth, but we're a commodity, and they're shipping us off planets. I mean, this really gets bizarre, but if you take off the, your little filters and say, that can't be true, and you listen to the whole story and you connect the dots, and you go, this is really, 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 really dark. But right now they've got us in the polarity game where we're white people against black people, against the Black Lives Matter, against the slavery of 400 years, against the the current politics to go back to the Confederate flag and the mask not mask and the COVID not COVID and vaccine not vaccine. These are all distractions if you really study ufology, and you'll go, holy shit. So it's like the matrix within the matrix, or the conspiracy theory within the conspiracy theory, and how far down the rabbit hole do you go? So people get all wrapped up and they go, oh, I know what's behind 9/11 and I know what's behind the Kennedy assassination, but that's just a little tiny piece of this grand puzzle, which is about the enslavement of humanity, and we have always been slaves, and they're not going to let us not be slaves. We're too valuable to them. That's my conclusion. So, somebody else. We haven't heard from Laurie for a while. Laurie, give us some light perspective, because you're a good contactee.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's okay. There's a lot of information out there. I think we just have to do our own research, and that's part of our own evolution. I feel that in the school systems they didn't teach us what we really should be knowing. Like how to balance checkbooks and maybe how to invest in stocks and bonds, etc. They didn't teach us a lot of the things that we should know to really evolve. And I think it's up to us as individuals to take the time to learn as much as we can. And then one thing will lead to another, and you'll learn some more. Also, as far as our pineal gland goes, that has to do with the third eye. There's a lot of fluoride in our waters that calcifies our pineal gland, and I think that we should be aware of that as well, because I feel that we're trying to be they're trying to dumb us down. People with abilities, people with psychic abilities, and that's a way of control, I feel, of the people. So things like stop ingesting the water with the fluoride, meditate, do things that make you feel good, stay in high positive vibrational energy. Love is the highest vibrational energy there is. Spread love, do good things, try to be positive, help others. That brings good to you and makes you feel good inside. If you focus too much on the negative, it's not good. And the bad ETs feed off of all the negativity. It's just something for all of us to be aware of. Resentment is a bad thing, We've got to learn to forgive others and not carry these other burdens and stuff. And once we feel like we can do that, we feel free. There's like a sense of freedom in allowing our hearts to love others and forgive and help teach others about all the good things that you can do to help evolve and become more aware of the fifth dimension even.
And I think that's really important. We get wrapped up in all these stories. And, when I was younger, I went to this thing called Psi World Seminar, and they called it the black-red game. Or, I think it's like the blue-red game. Anyway,
right.
They had two teams the whole conference. And at the end, the moral of the story is, will you compete with each other or will you cooperate? And then they do this shaming when you didn't get the answer, this mystery that started at the beginning of the 3-day conference, and you failed miserably as a group, and we were in competition with each other. I think the ETs have us in this experiment. Will we cooperate, or will we, like rats on a barrel, climb on top of each other and see who will win? But if we get into competition, none of us win. And the only one that wins is something outside of us. So that's why I think it's really good to have someone like you come remind us. Well, there's a spiritual and there's a reason behind this. There's a higher road. Take the high road. So yeah. So thanks for reminding us of that. And so what I do as an experiencer is when I'm at night, I have a different life. It's like I'm a simultaneously existing multidimensional soul that has many avatars. And so I find myself going to these other planets, and I'm working with different groups that have different political systems, different governance systems, different ways of running societies and planets, and they're teaching me these different systems because our system is so closed and perverse, you know, and it's been tried and it's gone this way over and over to yet another war. So we're in a danger of going into World War III, and we can excuse it and justify it and rationalize it all we want. But that's the end game, and it's game over, and we lose again. We're in Groundhog Day. We keep losing, you know. Yeah. And so we got to figure out our oneness. But like it's like accelerating every morning. You go, oh man, what else can go wrong? Oh, today it's like, well, there's a hurricane hitting. Oh, we're in the middle of COVID and the race wars, and now there's a hurricane coming. What else, right? So.
It was the same way.
What do you expect?
It was like that. It was like that for me in the 1980s because Hulk Hogan kept winning. I hated him. I liked the Heenan family. I was a bad guy. I always went for the bad guys. Hogan kept winning.
Oh, okay.
Why didn't Bobby Heenan just have him kidnapped or something? Okay, you didn't defend the belt. You got to give it up. That's what I'd have done. Had him kidnapped. Of course, Bobby's with the Lord now, so, but still, every time I turn around, Hogan's got his hand in there. Good God in heaven. I'm going to switch and watch NWA.
See, there's the analogy on the personal and the global level. The microcosm reflects the macrocosm. We all have our trials and tribulations, and what it's about is who are we? So what choices do we make, and how do we define ourselves? And do we end up, as a good person or a bad person or something in between? I was interviewing about 2 weeks ago this guy that had recovered 4,000 of his past lives. And I went, whoa. So anyway, he had a logical story on how he recovered 4,000 of his past lives. He said, but every once in a while in my lifetime I screwed up. And he said one time I was really mean to my daughter. I kept really over-punishing her for stupid things and ruining her life. So when I died from that lifetime, I found myself in a hell lifetime. I went, what? He said, no, you don't go to hell forever, but you have a period of time where you're being, in hell and you're being tortured and basically you've tortured yourself, but you have to reenact that, how you made everybody feel. And then once he got through that, he said it's not a time thing because time doesn't mean the same on the other side it does here. But after a time, which is the only way we can symbol it because we're used to speaking those terms, I was back in another body and had another lifetime. He said this happened to me 4 or 5 times out of 4,000 lifetimes, so it wasn't too bad. I wasn't in hell all the time, but he said I did end up in hell. So I think we really have to think in terms of, eventually we might get away with some crap in a given lifetime, but we're going to have to face not our maker, we face ourselves. And then you get what did that feel like on the receiving end of, you were given these behaviors and actions to a third party, a second party. What did that feel like to them? And so you get to relive how you treated people, and sometimes it wasn't nice. Okay, Deborah, we're running. We have like another half hour. Deborah, wise woman, Deborah.
I have a question for both of you. Do you think there's any connection to UFOs and events that occur in the paranormal community?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So you want to elaborate on that?
Yes. I have a theory and a guess. All right, we've all watched the ghost hunting shows, and we hear about the individuals that call the ghost hunting team to the location, and they explain all of the things that they have said they've experienced. And then they might show them a video of an apparition on the camera. Now, cameras can catch things that our eyes can't. Now, here lately, I don't know why I have caught this. I was looking through some old wrestling videos from 1985, and there are some anomalies that show up on the camera footage, the broadcast. And I would look at these things second by second, and it's you're not going to understand what I'm talking about totally with this unless you have the pictures. But these odd anomalies just show up on the camera, on the footage, and fly out of frame. Okay, I think that's interdimensional. The camera's seeing something that we can't with our eyes. Now, when cameras catch apparitions, I believe they are able to possibly see a dimension that must be close to ours, and they are seeing the spirit of someone that has not crossed over, or they are seeing what I have been told an ultra-terrestrial is.
You want to elaborate on what an ultra-terrestrial is?
I have been told, and this is my understanding, and this may not be correct. I just want to say that an ultra-terrestrial is an ET that can walk around on Earth and not be seen. Now, I don't know if that's true. That's how it was explained to me several years ago, and I haven't really done a lot of looking into that. But if that is true, some of the apparitions that people catch on camera might be ultra-terrestrials. I don't know. But that's the connection that I think there is to UFOs.
I used to analyze a lot of photos for some ghost hunters. I also have psychic abilities, and I can actually feel what's going on when I look at a picture. Like if there's something evil within the room that I'm looking at within the picture. Unfortunately, I've seen demons. I've circled them and picked them out. And I've also come across photos where I'm like, that's just a straight up, looks like a gray to me. You know, so I guess what they're doing is they're using their cloaking technology for other people so that they can't see it. And then in the photos, I can catch it and be like, okay, that's definitely an ET of some sort, not a demon here. So I'm able to differentiate that. So I believe they're definitely walking around doing their cloaking technology type of thing.
So have you ever worked with, I guess, a ghost hunting team, you know, and that was what happened, and you explained that to them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
and what,
most of them do believe in extraterrestrials as well. There was this one person that I used to work with, and he was a demonologist, and I would tell him, look at this. This is definitely what I believe to be a demon, and it would look very evil and stuff. Then I would see some weird creature here, and then I would see a gray space, and okay. And he would accept that, but then he would know, okay, that's not what we're really focused on here. We're focused on getting rid of this evil that's lurking around at this place. So then I would do a clearing for the place and things like that. So I think they accept it, but they disregard it because that's not what they're really focused on when it comes to like a home clearing of any evil entities. Yeah.
And Janet, do you know anything about the connection between the paranormal world and the UFO world?
Well, let me just give you this insight. When I was 4, I went up on a spaceship, and they were showing me the 24 different future potential timelines that we could choose as the choosers going through existence. And so then I had a near-death experience that same summer later on, And I found myself with my guides, and it was the same vibratory frequency as where the extraterrestrials that I had visited. I'm sure there's other extraterrestrials, but it was the same vibratory frequency. And once again, in my near-death scenario, they were showing me timelines. If I stayed dead, this would happen. If I came back, I'd be on a different timeline. So there was some kind of correlation there. I've always dealt with ghosts and extraterrestrials. And on a feeling level, a lot of it's like telepathic, and what does that feel like? And it was very similar vibratory frequency. It's like the dead are walking among us, and they're, one click off than this density level that we're in, or maybe 2 or 3 clicks off. So that's what it's like. The ETs and the dead, they could be standing in a room with you, and you don't notice them because it's a slightly different, it's like a different channel. And if you tune into it, then you can tune into them. And so that happened in my, just a couple of years ago, in my house here. I sensed something, I turned around, and there was a gray standing there, looked like an owl, and I just laughed at it. They said, "Oh, come on, really?" And then it shape-shifted into a gray. So then we had a real conversation. It was, of course, all telepathic, and it wasn't at night, and they didn't abduct me, and they didn't bite my brain, and it was just a wonderful communication. So we can get there if we start realizing that this is just another part of existence. You can get comfortable with talking to the dead, with ghosts. Don't you do? And we're getting the feedback. Sorry, Deborah. Don't you do the voice box thing with the deceased? Haven't you done that with your group?
The spirit communication.
Spirit box.
Yeah, we've developed some spirit boxes that we use.
And I'd love to do that on the show time.
Well, if I can ever get Tallahassee to finish them, we will get them on the show. But, it's like pulling teeth, and I don't want to be the dentist.
I just thought about something.
Maybe some other voice box people will show up. Go ahead. That's you.
This is something, it's kind of like a food for thought thing. We hear all the time about the whole idea behind they're here and they're living amongst us. We've heard that phrase a lot, whether it be reptilians or this race or this race. I have often wondered, based on what we are told, that the Nordics look like. We are told they are the tall whites, very pale, white skin, blonde hair, so forth. I've often wondered if, since the Eisenhower Treaty and the alleged alien-human hybridization program, I've often wondered, are some people born that are albino actually hybrids, Nordic human? Because when I worked for the Home Depot, one of my co-workers had 2 boys that were albino, and they were abnormally tall, and from what she would tell me, relatively smart. I mean, for their grade level, and never hardly made anything less than an A-. I mean, really, really good in school. Didn't have to study for a test. And I would always look at them. I'm like, if I could get some of their DNA, But then again, what's that going to prove? Because you got to get the DNA of a Nordic. But I've always wondered that. Could that be something that's hiding in plain sight that the average human is not going to think about? And the answer is yes. It could be, because the young lady said that their doctor could not figure out why she gave birth to twins that were albino. It didn't make sense in some type of something. She explained it to me. It wouldn't be something anticipated in the family bloodline, I guess, but it happened.
Well, we know that we have the government hybrid program where they're trying to make super soldiers, and it's apparently a very successful program. I have one that his name is Dan Cooper. He's very open. He's a hybrid. He was created during, he's in his mid to late 60s, so after World War II, he was in that program. And then we have other super soldiers that are...
Did you say his name was Dan Cooper?
Yes, He's been on my show a number of times.
Okay,
and
all right.
He said that he was created in the hybrid program afher World War II. And he's got pictures, too. He's got pictures. For some reason, I'm getting the sense that this person you're referring to as this Dan Cooper, the Central Intelligence Agency knows of him because his name was used during the D.B. Cooper hijacking, because the guy bought the ticket under the name of Dan Cooper. Now, no, he's a different one.
It just might be a coincidence. It might be a coincidence, or they could have pulled that name from this man. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why that just hit me hard, that there's a connection there, but I don't know how exactly. But I do believe that the Cooper hijacking was CIA Operation Northwoods, so there may be a connection with the Central Intelligence Agency, and that makes sense with the hybrid thing you're talking about.
Well, he was in the 20 and Back program, and so he was, what he was telling me is that they have a program where in space they no longer do destructive wars. So they send a champion, and that's kind of like what's behind our Olympics, right? We sent a champion. And the Anunnaki have a story that when they were trying to make decisions of a major kind that affected the entire population, they sent the king, and the kings would wrestle naked, and whoever won the battle, they got to call the shot. So we have a history of these champions. So he was trained from a young age to be a champion, and he was taught all these martial arts, but from the perspective of an enhanced human. So he had sharpened abilities, telepathic. He could outmaneuver. He had basically superpowers, and he doesn't have them now because when he did his tour of duty of 20 years, where he was a champion, and he won for the Earth, he won for the world, and then as a reward, which is very common in our history, when you have somebody that serves well, they get to go home and retire. They get to live, and the kings of old would give you 40 acres or something. They'd give you a farm, right? And they'd say, okay, you paid your dues. You get to keep what you stole, and you get to go home and have some lands, and so that was your reward. So he basically got to go home with his life, but when they returned him to Earth, they took his the abilities out of his clone body, and they can move souls, and so he got a different clone body. And you can listen to the shows. I've got probably 5 or 6 episodes I've recorded with him. You can I always say decide for yourself. Don't believe me. That's why I'm recording all these stories. Go listen yourself. But anyway, I get a sense he's a really good guy. He's not. His goal is to give free energy to the world. He says, right now we're a slave species, and he knows how to reverse engineer the technology that he witnessed because he's a super genius from his genetics, right? So he's reinventing all the different parts of the M drive, which is the interstellar time-space system that we use to go to the colony. So his information correlates with John Titor II, and I have a number of interviews on AquarianRadio.com with John Titor, or Titor, T-I-T-O. Not the first one that was on Art Bell's show, but the second, who came forth about 5 or 6 years ago, wrote a series of books. So he says that are you correcting me? Was it TR6? Right, was used for interstellar travel. So the two of them are talking about the same program, same technology. But Dan Cooper says that he knows he's a physicist and he knows how to recreate it. But I don't know. The governments are not going to let us put out free energy systems. That's why they backed fossil fuel technology because they can monetize it. And so I said, good luck with that. I hope you can get it out there. But he, the last I spoke with him, was optimistic that somehow he was going to get free energy out to the world. So if we had free energy, renewable energy that was just like what Tesla had. Tesla said that he basically plugged in the Model T Ford, and it came from the atmosphere. It didn't need anything. You didn't have to, recharge it, or it wasn't electric. It was just free energy that's there already in existence in the universe. So that would eliminate one level of slavery.
That's allegedly one thing that Valiant Thor mentioned in his first meeting at the Pentagon underground with him and Nixon and the aides, because he was bringing us information on how we could live with free energy, like you're talking about. And then, and see, this was what gets me about the Valiant Thor story. He brings us information. There's no deal made at that moment, but yet the president invites him to live at the Pentagon. So he's doing something with us. We just hadn't gotten to a meeting point yet. And so that's why I think it happened in 58 at Holloman. But that's what he brought us. And I think what the deal was is when Ike said, okay, we can't do this because it'll make the economy just collapse in our country. We got to build up to it. And I really believe the Eisenhower Treaty started that to get us there, because we are so primitive in comparison to them. They've got to work us up to where they are. And I think they just probably forgot that. I know that's simple. I mean, they're used to all this, and so they bring it to a primitive. That's like us going to visit cavemen and asking them, where can I plug up my iPhone? They're like, huh? What's that? So they had to get us up to the technological level that they are, or at least to a degree to where we can start working on this free energy scenario. And that's why Valiant Thor started living there in 57, even though there was not a deal made. I believe something was in the works, and Val was the guy that caused the meeting in 58 to happen, I believe, because allegedly
all the free
Jill
energy systems exist already. They're just not letting us have it. And the reason why is for politics. It's nothing more than the whole political system of money. Money is a very political system. We don't need to have money. When you're in space, I had Randy Kramer on, and she was talking about, but I've experienced this myself with being, I go periodically to different meetings, and there's no money. They don't. This is money is a slave system. So you have a planet that's based on money, you're dealing with a slave system. And they do have the non-interference clause, but they're getting to the point where that's going to go away. I think there's an expiration date on that, and that's what I'm getting, and this is what I'm getting from my meetings, and it's all just like a psychic level. But they can't do this forever. We've been slaves for a long time, thousands of years. But part of what we're doing, and it doesn't matter how we do it, like the Black Lives Matter, the latest slave group were blacks, but we've had slavery since the Anunnaki created the slaves in the mines in South Africa. They were mining the gold to send back in the shipments back in 400 or 300,000 years ago or something like that. So this is a long series of slaves, and they've always gone. And it is about genetics, but it's about the people that are of the bloodline, the Anunnaki, and everybody else isn't. We have a little minuscule amount but we've got, because we have human Homo erectus DNA, it's just like the old rule in the South. You were black if you had 1% black blood, right? You were 1% black. So now we're human because, we can have as little as 1% human blood. But Gilgamesh was 3/4 gods, and they would not let Gilgamesh have eternal life. And so they have denied us longevity, denied us the technology, the education, denied us the cures. The Anunnaki have zero disease. Disease is a form of control manipulation of humanity. keeping us sick. This COVID war was part of the COVID war. Is not any human lab. This is extraterrestrial. It starts us going in the struggle of COVID, which this is a part of the depopulation bomb. You really want to get the conspiracy within the conspiracy. This is there's too many humans. We've started to change the planet too rapidly. It was about to flip. Last year, this time, with all the planes flying, my house was so hot I thought I was going to die, and the centipedes were coming out of the walls. I couldn't even walk out of the bathroom at night. It was freaky. It was creepy. And I went, oh, God. And so I said, there's something wrong. This year, we stopped. So COVID happened so we would stop flying because we were reaching the tipping point, and this place was about to be uninhabitable, and that's not their time frame. They probably will let us go tip it on over because there's somebody lined up to come in and get all of our minerals. When you get down to what's going on in space, it's the Ferengi. And what do they want? Platinum. So they want the gold, the minerals that are in the earth. That's the story that goes back 450,000 years ago. They knew there was gold on the earth, and so they risked their lives to come through the asteroid belt. They lost 50 Anunnaki, and they didn't have a lot of people to lose back there because their population was declining because they had screwed up their world and their atmosphere was dissolving, but they risked their lives to come here. But ultimately greed took over, and they set up the monetary system, which kept us the haves and the have-nots. So if you really go deeper into this, follow the money. And anybody that's got over probably 50 million, they're the Illuminati. They're in the club. We're not. It's not Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. No, it's the Anunnaki or the Reptilians, whoever they are. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if when the Watergate scandal hit, I do not know if the real Deep Throat said this or not. But in the movie All the President's Men, the actor who was Deep Throat, he always said, follow the money. And that being Hollywood could have been an Operation Mockingbird thing, trying to tell people to follow the money in real life. Because that's what he would always tell Robert Redford's character of Bob. He played Bob Woodward. And I'm like, wow, okay, that makes sense. Deep Throat. I wonder if Deep Throat in real life told Bob Woodward to do that, or did he give him other direction that enabled him to do it? Because in Hollywood, it's dramatized of him saying, follow the money. That kind of a thing. So that's kind of unique.
I think it's good advice. You want to solve a mystery, follow the money,
With all of this crap that's going on here on the surface of the earth, how do you think it's affecting the hollow earth? A lot of people ain't thinking about that. I think they're not thinking about it. And what's going on in Alaska with the 200-foot hole, they have got to be aware and in on this to a certain degree. And I've often wondered, would they have anything to do with this COVID thing? Maybe it didn't come from up north, but down south. That's a thought. And when I was...
It's an interesting thought. I used to visit the hollow earth for many, many years. I would go out my body, and I would go down into the basement of my house, and there was a portal, and I would travel down there. But, I haven't investigated that. That's a good idea. I should do that in hypnosis because I might have the answer for that. A lot of times you don't recall it because it's not time, but since you're evoking it, maybe it is time to really go into what was I getting into when I went down to the hollow earth. But I get the sense that there's both there's several cultures down there. It's not just one culture. You've got the
no, that's not it.
Because
when I was a kid, they used to tell us in Sunday school, they talk about you better be good or you're going to hell. And everybody would point towards the ground. Now, talking about hell being in the center of the earth, allegedly, if you believe in the hollow earth theory, there's an internal sun, which is fire. So is that hell? That's the question.
Well, in the Anunnaki, hell was just the Absu. You would go down to South Africa because that was the mines, and they were mining gold, which was hot and miserable. And so that was their system was if you behaved yourself, you got to move out of working in the mines, and you got to be, in the house. You got to be a household slave, right? Instead of going in the mines. So the people didn't live long who worked in the mines. That's what ended up in the Bible, got interpreted as hell, was South Africa. And then Michael Tellinger found the mines and all the ruins, and he said, this is Enki's lab, and this is where humanity was created. And so they still have the mines in South Africa, and they're still working, though. And then there's a story in the 1800s where they sent a train full of gold that they harvested from the mines, which are still operational, and they're ancient. They don't know how old they are, right? And they put all this stuff on this train, and then it went so far, and then it disappeared. So Tellinger says, I think that the Anunnaki just teleported it up and took it away, because nobody could explain where this train went full of gold in the 1800s. So, but it's interesting, the biblical stories, because you can go pre-biblical and find the origins for all these biblical stories, and you'll see them in the ancient Sumerian and Akkadian text, and you go, holy shit, that's what they were talking about,
It's so interesting. It's like such a wow. I've come across that too. Yeah.
And you go, well, they taught me this in Sunday school. It's just like going to grade school, right? They're teaching all this bullshit. And you go, oh man, so.
Yeah, they left a lot of stuff out about the Nephilim and all that. They left a lot of things out. I had to learn that on my own. I'm like, wait, they never taught me that in Catholic school. Yeah.
Well, see, that's another thing that really intrigues me is if you say, okay, David versus Goliath. Okay, David beat Goliath. All right, great. Goliath was a giant. Okay, great. But then you ask that same person, do they believe in the Nephilim? They're like, nuh-uh. I'm like, wait a minute. And then they get embarrassed. And then they don't want to talk to you, but they'll turn around and say bad things about you. That's about the two-faced aspect I was talking about earlier. That's why I don't talk to a lot of people about a lot of things, because that's all that's going to happen. They're going to be two-faced and talk about you behind your back and create confusion. Confusion from ignorance.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's going to be people like that out there, but you just can't let it get to you. It's just the reality of life, I guess.
I just looked at the time. We're almost done. Oh my God, we'll have to do this again. This has been fun.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we're running out of time. Oh my God, that went so fast.
I wanted to quick tell you that I'm looking at one of my UFO visitors right now. I'm outside, and here it goes. It's here. I just took photos. This is how often I see
chills.
That. Yes, and there's another one to the right of me. I just took pictures.
Whenever someone speaks truth, I get chills up and down my spine. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Woo! Hi guys.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, that's really saying. I was saying in my mind, oh, hello. Hi.
Well, final words, because our clock is running out. So, Laurie, since you spoke, what's your final word? We have 90 seconds.
Final word is just keep learning. Take the time to do your own research, and just look for peace in your life and love. Enjoy each day as it comes, really. And, just help teach others certain things that just spread the knowledge, even if it's just on a one-on-one basis.
Did you say find a pizza in your life?
What was that?
Yeah, find that pizza. Peace.
She said find the pizza in her life. Let me tell you, I got a picture of her when she was a kid eating some pizza. She was
I love pizza, though. I do love pizza. I like a good slice.
Good night, Irene.
But
good
peace.
God.
Yes.
Put more boom on that pizza.
Okay, final words, Deborah, and then Donnie. Go ahead.
What she said, like, she hit the nail right on the mark. Laurie.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Donnie.
Basically,
final words.
I don't know if I have one. I think it's pretty much been summed up, really. No, you know. Final word.
Well, we're out of time.
I would have said what Laurie said, but she said it first.
All right, we'll do this again. That was fun. So I just want to tell our listeners we'll be back again next week, same time, same bat channel, and we'll do more. So tune in to us next week. Yep, same bat channel. Yeah, that's what they called it back in the day. Okay.
Adam West was the best Batman.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, dear.
All right.
Good night.
Aloha. Good night.
A lot of blessings to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.